What's up, guys? It's been ages since we've done a YouTube live. Let's just get our house in order. Let me get all of this in one place. What's up, guys? So I hope you guys are able to see this. Let's just see. What's up, guys? Hi, Pegasus. How you doing? Just waiting for everybody to jump on, and then we can start our live session. Hi, Nitin. How you doing? Always good to have a chat with people like you. What are we doing? We have 3 concurrent viewers. Okay. Let's just wait for a few people to get on, and then I think we can begin our stream. Today we're going to be talking about Neuralink. It's going to be some really exciting stuff, but just let's wait for some people to jump on before we get started. What's up, Timeline? It's a nice name, Timeline. So, usually before my streams and right after my stream, I take a few questions. So until people come in, if you guys want to ask me something, go ahead. It's right there. Chat box is right there. I can see it in front of me. We have 9 people. Well, I think there are 2 streams that have been created, which is confusing some people. Yeah, it's because I'm using a very high quality video web camera. What's up, Adil? How you doing? Is it Adil or Adil? Adil. Interesting. Yeah, Brynal, we're going to talk about the bandwidth today. I'm actually going to talk about everything. I'm going to cover everything about BCIs, everything that I know about BCIs, and I think we'll be able to kind of show people that the world is changing. Hi, Prithvi. How are you doing? How you doing, guys? I know it's a Saturday night. A lot of you are out having some fun. But I thought we could just have a quick chat. Yes, tell me, Ram, before people join on. What's up? What's my newly built PC used for? Well, I was actually building it for a friend. And yeah, it's a powerful graphic design PC. It's probably going to be used for 3D modeling in the future too. Using Meta, can we create thumbnail like your YouTube videos? Easily. So, in fact, let me show you guys a small sneak peek of Meta, since you're all anyway joining on. Let me just show you a quick sneak peek. So let's see. So you guys can probably see this now. And I'm just showing you a demo. Alright, guys, welcome back to another episode of Meta Design. In this episode, we're going to learn how to do select tool. You get a bunch of, and we're allows you to select everything from and you can learn how design, hold the to product, to management, to front end, to performance. I think you can see. So we don't feel empathy in its full form. We're able to feel empathy. What n+1 factorial is, really or you don't know what factorial is. Based on science. Google. And that's enough for the sneak peek. But yeah, there's some really interesting stuff that all of you guys will learn soon. But when we reach 50 people on YouTube, I'm going to start talking about BCIs and what I think the future is going to be about with brain-computer interfaces. Well, the quality of the live stream has gone up because I have a green screen, I have a really good light in front of me, and I have a very, very good web camera at the Logitech Brio. It's a 4K camera. But yeah, we're gonna do some cool stuff. Let's just wait for a couple more people and we'll start. Meta will be releasing, I think, in a couple of weeks. at least the content, the basic content, and then the platform will release most likely end of November. Okay guys, so I think we have enough people. I'm going to quickly run you through what I want to talk about. So what we usually discuss on Instagram and what I've been putting up on Instagram and what I talk about there is mostly about things like college and how it's irrelevant and MBAs, but that's basic level stuff. And the people who follow me on YouTube are generally much smarter than the people who just follow me on Instagram. So we're going to step it up a little bit here. I'm actually going to run you through actual neural science, neural engineering rather. And I'm going to tell you that the entire idea of careers and degrees and all of that is going to be pretty much irrelevant in the next 10 or 15 years. And the reason for this is because I feel like humans as a race, we've reached a point in evolution where we can control our own evolution. We can improve our own facilities, and you can just imagine awesome stuff. So today, if you have a great design and you want to show another person your design, you first have to make it. You need some sort of tool to make it, and then you need to use the internet to send it to somebody else. But with something like a brain-computer interface, you just need to think it. You can make entire videos just by thinking about it. Now you have to think about supply-demand. When everyone in the world has some device like this where they're just able to create an image of whatever they're thinking about or a video of whatever they're thinking about, you don't need video producers. It's just dependent on your creativity. And if everyone at the end of the day is just creating digital stuff in their brains, then what happens to knowledge workers? What happens to jobs? Right? So those are the questions that I've been thinking about, and I think that it's going to be fantastic, the world we're going to be living in. But first, let's start discussing the topic of the hour, Neuralink. All right. Okay, so I don't know if you guys have seen this website. This is the official Neuralink website. It's the tech behind Neuralink is not that different from what's already existed. It's just they managed to miniaturize it and put it inside the brain. So let's start with what brain-computer interfaces are, right? A brain-computer interface at its basic level is exactly what you saw in that picture that I had of me on Instagram with all those electrodes connected to my head. So there are two main EEGs available in the market, two main commercial EEGs, and EEGs they're basically a way for you to read signals from the brain, right? So every time your brain does something and some part of your brain is active, for example, the language part of your brain is active, then that part, A, that's improved blood flow, which you can capture on something called magnetic resonance imaging, and B, it sort of has electrical activity that you can also measure as long as an electrode was there or is there, right? So by measuring how the brain behaves in different situations, we can kind of get this output from the brain that is unique, right? And using that output, if we had a dictionary to be able to read that output, that becomes really awesome, right? So you have this way for the brain to output this new language, and this language is a bunch of waveforms. And if we had a way to read that language, then pretty much instantly we'd be able to transmit thoughts between each other. So let me just show you two examples of EEGs so that we know where to start from. The first one is OpenBCI. It's this small device. Let me just show you what it looks like. It costs about $1,200. And I don't know how many of you guys have seen this. Let's just see if the live stream is on. Okay, awesome. So the OpenBCI starts, you can either have the Ganglion 4-channel board or the Cyton 8-channel board. Now, don't get confused by all of this, right? You connect the board to a biosensing unit. So the biosensing unit is basically a cap with like electrodes on it. And the electrodes all transmit the information to the board, which you can then connect to your computer, right? So when you connect it to your computer and you're thinking particular thoughts, you can get the waveform of it. But most of these electrodes have something called a very, very high signal to noise ratio, or a very high noise to signal ratio, right? There's too much noise. So if you have a fan on, the electrodes will pick up on that noise, right? So what we kind of figured out is that there's so much noise that the only thing that these kind of EEGs like OpenBCI or Emotive, which is another EEG, this is a 2-channel EEG. I think they also have an enterprise EEG. I don't know what it's called. It's called, I think the Epoch Plus or one of the two, right? So the idea with these multi-channel EEGs, there's still a big problem with noise, and they capture very well. They capture artifacts. What do I mean by artifacts? Artifacts don't mean actual thoughts. They mean if I lock my jaw like this, if I do this, or if I blink my eyes, then the EEG will be able to pick it up. It's not picking up muscle changes, it's picking up electrical changes, but it's not very accurate at picking up electrical changes from the brain, right? And if you look at very, very commercial or very, very research grade EEGs, you can actually do really cool stuff. Because at the end of the day, we don't know what the brain is outputting because we don't know how to read it. We don't have a dictionary. But what if we did? What if we just used AI and had thousands of people undergo brain scans while they were seeing something and see if you could reconstruct it? And I want to show you a video that came out in 2011. Let me just show you this. This is from UC Berkeley. I'm just going to play the video. Okay.
I'm a professor of psychology and neuroscience here at UC Berkeley, and my lab works on vision.
But I'll put a link either way.
Focuses on the visual system, and vision's a really important.
And this video is very interesting because what they did was they put this device on people. They showed them particular images, and then they were able to use an EEG-like device to figure out what people were actually seeing.
A dictionary that will allow us to accurately predict what the brain activity would be that would be evoked by that movie. And then
actually, they used an MRI to do this.
To be able to reconstruct the
That's an MRI device, this thing.
So on the left,
an MRI, like a good quality MRI in India, costs about 15 crores. On the right, we have but I think in the next 10 or 15 years, that cost is going to be negligible. It's going to be less than 20 or 30 lakhs.
The brain's kind of crunched up in the skull, so it's
right. So they played different videos for them.
So we kind of inflate it and then we flatten it out. And we can see a flat map of the visual cortex.
Based on the videos, they were able to map out what parts of the brain had what kind of blood flow. This is basically blood flow in the brain.
Is to translate between these movies
those are the parts that are active
and this pattern of brain activity that occurs.
Now, what I want to show you
back part of the people in the magnet for several hours,
when they put these people in the MRI,
and then in the second part,
and they showed them these pictures, what they were able to do was they were able to reconstruct the brain activity. And as you can see, it's not very accurate. This is in 2011.
When the movie that we showed,
but it's purely, what's on the right is purely constructed from brain activity.
Our reconstructions are actually fairly accurate. But when the movie that we showed is something rarer, as you'll see in a second, like this abstract
just look
thing,
at that.
Then our reconstructions are coarser.
Right? And this reminds me a lot
I think you'll be able to use this kind of technology for
old,
communicating with people who
of the old, what do you call them? The old cameras, the Nokia 1100 cameras that you used to click pictures with. They were very low resolution. And that's the thing about all of these, the current MRI technology or the current EEG technology. It's very low resolution, right? And when you take low resolution pictures, you're going to get low resolution outputs. So here, today, what's happened with Neuralink and why I'm really excited is it's nothing new in terms of technology, in terms of what we're trying to do. But because of the miniaturization and because we're able to implant more electrodes in the brain, it makes so much sense, right? Because you're able to get a higher resolution picture, a much higher resolution picture. It's like until now, we've been playing with a Nokia 1100. And today, finally, we have like this hyper powerful DSLR that is always on. Right, and obviously that's going to lead to people that are creating things like Instagram for the brain, which is, I can't even tell you what that's like, but you basically share in other people's experiences, right? You can feel what another person feels, you can see what another person sees, your entire vision, senses, smell, everything can become what another person is feeling at that moment. And that's the beautiful part about having something like Neuralink, right? So the number of electrodes Neuralink has, I think the current EEGs have I think at maximum about 100 or 128 electrodes. The one I used had 128 electrodes. These ones have just like 15 or 16. But something like the Neuralink has 3072 electrodes, right? Which is awesome. But it still feels like this is early. Maybe tomorrow we'll put in 15,000 electrodes or 30,000 electrodes. It doesn't matter. The cool part is that we're developing higher and higher resolution photographs or videos of what the brain activity is like. And if you reverse translate it, you will be able to reconstruct what somebody is seeing, what somebody is feeling, what somebody is smelling. So in essence, it becomes mind reading, right? Because today, if I want to communicate somebody with you, and Elon Musk keeps talking about this, right? He keeps talking about the bandwidth problem. The bandwidth problem is actually, if I want to tell you something, what I need to do is I need to pull out a phone or I need to use a paper and a pen and I need to type it out to you. and then I need to send it over the internet. Sending over the internet is instant, but typing takes time. Your bandwidth is limited by 2 thumbs, right? But you look at how a computer transfers files from one computer to another, right? You just connect a LAN cable or over Wi-Fi or whatever, you can transfer gigabytes in seconds, right? But you can't do that with, you can probably maximum type in a few KB per second. Pictures a little bit faster. Video is even faster, but with video, you can't put what's in your brain because you're recording something outside. With something like the Neuralink, your speed, right, is going to be so high. I can transmit an entire movie or my entire life history to you, including every smell I've ever had, including every touch that I've ever felt, including every movie that I've ever watched, everything in less than a fraction of a second. Everything. You know everything about me in less than a fraction of a second if I will it so. You don't need phones, you don't need computers, you don't need anything, right? Direct from me to you, as long as that chip's inside my brain and it's Wi-Fi activated. Which is crazy, right? Because think about it. It makes everything that we have. It makes this phone, it makes this, these computers, it makes it all irrelevant, right? If you can instantly, then in a true sense, we all become equals, right? Because if you want to become a surgeon or a doctor, you can just pick up on that information. One of the reasons I can do things like design and I can do development and all of it together at the same time, I think it's because of the internet, right? I learned all of these skills through the internet. And today we've reached a point in history where I think you can go even faster. If you want to be a surgeon, it's instant. I can just download somebody who's learned 45 years of surgery. I can just download everything that he or she ever knows or has ever found out or has ever learned, including tactile skills, in less than a fraction of a second. Right? So what happens then? Right? And I really want to, I've been thinking about this for a while. What happens? This is not very far away. This might be maybe 15 or 20 years away, which is why when people tell me, what career should I do or what degree should I do, I'm just like, this is the future, right? But beyond this future, I don't think the things like concepts of money and things like that will exist. Not in the traditional sense, at least. I think it's all going to be purely virtual economies, and you will pay to experience somebody else's reality, right? You might pay to experience, like somebody will create an artificial reality for you. And one of the parts of being in that artificial reality is escapism, right? And I want to tell you this in a very strange way, right? Think about it. Suppose you were able to be anybody or whoever or whatever life you were willing to live. Suppose you can be anything you want, have anything you want. And suddenly that's given to you. You can just imagine it, you become real, and you can forget your old self for 30 minutes, 2 hours, however long you program it to stop. And you're in this new world. It's amazing. You have every comfort you have in life. It's awesome. But after 15 or 20 minutes of happiness, you'll say, this is boring. I want some thrills. Why do you think we go to Disneyland? We go to Disneyland to go up a roller coaster and then down, right? We want the thrills. We want the sadness. We want the unpredictability. We want all of those things. Even though a lot of people today, there's too much of that. People have too much unpredictability. So they're like, what degree do I do? What this do I do? How do I handle my future? Should I buy a house? That's all now. But I'm saying if you had the ability to be whoever and wherever you wanted to be, whatever smell, you could feel anything and be anything. What I think you would choose at that point is to have a little bit of downs too. And eventually I feel if you continue along that line of thought, you will eventually want to be a person exactly like yourself. Right? With the same constraints, with the same, life is not too hard, life is not too good. You want to be someone in the middle, right? Because anything too high or too low gets boring. And eventually, think about it. All the most famous kings, the richest people in the world, all they want sometimes is they just want to be a normal person, right? Look at all those famous people out there. They're just like, I want normalcy. Whereas normal people are like, I want to be famous. But at the end of the day, with an experience like this, if I create experiences for you, I create a game for you. And I have an HTC Vive in my house. And the HTC Vive puts you in different worlds, right? It's not that great. But, if you put on the HTC Vive and you enter a new world, eventually you don't want to see just nice views or nice sunsets. You want some awesome stuff. You want giants. You want 50-foot giants. You want all of those things. But then at the end of the day, you'll just want your normal life and experience. You want the ups, you want the downs, you want the unpredictability. And I guess that's where we're going with BCIs, right? with us being able to transfer information much, much faster. This entire live session, imagine, I'd be able to transfer this plus my entire life history to you in like quarter of a second. It's going to be awesome, right? So, and at that point, all of this doesn't matter. Money, internet, it doesn't, I mean, the internet matters because it's the base layer, but the problems that you have today will eventually go away. It's actually like deliverance. It's actually a heaven that could come in your lifetime, right? But to get into that heaven, you need to understand that heaven is not what you were looking for at all, right? You don't want the eternal bliss. You want normalcy, right? Anyway, back to the brain-computer interface. So what's happening, right? Let's look at this. This is a paper that I saw. I think this is from the same team as the Neuralink team, and this was some time ago. I think this was sometime in 2019, but earlier, right? This is the silicon shuttle that they developed for insertion of the electrode arrays. So you basically put threads inside the brain while avoiding vasculature. Vasculature is blood vessels. You don't want to destroy your blood vessels because then the tissue around the blood vessel dies and the tissue goes from pink to black when it dies, right? So let me just show you some images. So this is, it's a very zoomed in version of what the silicon shuttle looks like. The thread goes through, it's inside this, and here are the electrodes, the 32 electrodes per thread, and this is how the device looks. It's just 3D printed adapters. It's basically the test device is just put into the brain and pulled out. It's not that difficult. And here's the difference. This is this is the thread that's been successfully implanted, and B, this is the thread that's not been successfully implanted. Now, the threads that they're putting, I think they're putting it through, if I remember correctly, about 96 threads, right? So it's 96 microsurgeries where they put it in different areas of your brain. As you can see here, this is something called buckling. This B image. Buckling basically means that the structures around the thread have collapsed on each other. Thin structures have collapsed on each other, and that's one of the kind of problems with Neuralink. You could die while it's being put in, or you could have permanent brain injury. But I think the odds of that are low. In fact, in the if you look at the actual Neuralink paper, the odds, I think there were 40 out of 44 mice that survived. What is that? Where is that? Let's see. Yes. So 40 out of 44 attempted insertions were successful. So that's about a 90% insertion rate of 1280 implanted electrodes. And as you can see, this is the chart of the electrode reading, and it's permanent. So today, if we give a monkey an EEG, and if it moves around too much, you can't study it. You can't pull out real signals from it because the monkey is fidgeting. Whereas with this, it's permanently implanted. Movement doesn't matter. You might ask, well, there are threads inside my head. If I move, won't those threads move? And the answer is no. It's going to work exactly like a hernial mesh. So if you have a hernia and if you lift a heavy object and some of your intestine comes out, it can happen. Here's what a hernia surgery looks like, right? So you put this mesh in to the body, right? And this is the hernia. A little bit of tissue a little bit of the intestine is coming out along with tissue. And what you do is you put the mesh in and you suture it. You just tie it up, and then eventually it gets absorbed by the body's tissues. So the body creates what I would like to call its own version of sutures. So in your brain, the body will heal, or your brain will heal and create tissue around all of those electrodes, right? And it'll probably be harmless tissue. And how do we know what's harmless and harmful in the brain? When some patients have tumors and somebody's performing surgery on them, the surgeon will sometimes use fMRI and continuously see blood flow to the brain and ask the patient to perform complex tasks like speaking or moving their hands. And then they will look at the blood flow, and the areas of the tumor that have very little blood flow, they will cut that part off because they know it's not useful to the brain. So that's how we know which part of the brain is useful or not useful. And similar to this, the brain will create harmless tissue, in my opinion, around the electrode threads, which then make it sealed in place. So even if you move around, it really doesn't matter because it's a part of your brain now, right? And based on this, you can pull out all of the data of a human being, right? And let me just show you some images. So this is it's like your grandmother, right? She used to make that hole to put in the needle to put the to thread through, it's very, very, very similar. In fact, I think they took a book out of your grandmother's page, right? Or took a page out of your grandmother's book. So this is how thin it is. It's extremely, extremely thin. They made an entire device to be able to implant the threads in. The threads, like I said, they've got a loop. So you put the pin around the loop and then you just put it in the brain. At the end of the day, it looks complex, but it's exactly how you do it. If you had, some cake dough and you had a pin and a thread, that's exactly how you would put it in as well. You need to puncture it a little bit, have some open space, and in that open space, dump the thread, right? And as you can see, this is how it happens. And they need to put this in, I think, 96 different times, right? So yeah, there could be a small chance of brain damage, but the planning feature highlights the ability to avoid vasculature, which is to avoid blood vessels. If you avoid blood vessels, you'll be fine. Even with normal tissue, if you're even in your hand, if you're able to avoid blood vessels and just put a pin at let me just show you. If you put a pin at the very edge of your skin, and you've probably seen this, right? You've probably been pricked by some wood or something, no blood comes out. And that's because you're avoiding vasculature, right? So the robot features an auto insertion mode, so there's no humans. They're not making any stupid mistakes. Humans are the ones that make mistakes in surgeries. And yeah, so then what happens? So you have all these threads, and maybe they're all coming out, and they're connected to a box. How does a box transmit information? Through this chip. It's a sensor device, and this is the edge of the chip. It's a USB here, but you could use Wi-Fi, you could use a LAN cable, you could use any way of transferring information. Here are the threads in the rat's brain. You're probably going to have the same kind of threads. And then finally, what happens is, look at the electrophysiology. You'll see that you're able to get the entire neural signals, the entire unfiltered neural signals, and then you'll have to filter out some of the noise. And that's signal processing that happens through software. It's not a hardware thing. So you'll have updates on how clear the image is. So on the OnePlus or the Google phones, you keep getting updates saying now the phone camera is better, and you might think, how did that happen? It's the same camera, how is it better? And that's because they managed to get the noise processing to do a little bit better than what it used to be. So this is the Neuralink. It's a high bandwidth neural interface. Right now, I think it's only going to be used, in my opinion, for quadriplegics or people who have prosthetic arms. And the truth is, they will be more powerful than us. And the truth is, if I gave somebody a prosthetic arm, like our hand has 27 degrees of freedom. You can move it in total about 27 degrees, right? And you can Google it, the human hand, 27 degrees of freedom. A prosthetic arm, I can just install a new degree of freedom, right? And eventually, connecting that directly to the BCI, you'd be able to move it in ways that were never possible. Because our joints actually have, let me give you an example, right? Look at my fingers here, and I hope you guys are seeing me. Look at my fingers here, right? So when somebody has neuropathy, which is if you sever all their nerve fibers, what will happen is their arms will actually be in an openish state. It'll be something like this, right? So if you look at this finger, you can actually move it in 3 forms. So you can do state 1, state 2, state 3. And when you do state 3, it also affects the state 2. That's because all our joints are connected, right? And there are ligaments around the joints that affect each other because we are biological. I don't think a person with prosthetic will have that issue as long as you make it separate joints. So you can actually give somebody 100 degrees of freedom if necessary. Think about all the things that person will be able to do, because that person will be able to control it as seamlessly as we do. In fact, even faster. Those joints can move really fast. They can move as fast as one of those machines that you see in a factory that make matches. I don't know if you've seen one of those. Let me just show you. Let me show you. I don't know if you guys have seen this. So there's insanely fast machines that are able to do this. Biologically, we're limited, right? Our bandwidth is slow even from the brain to the hand. But if you have something like Neuralink sitting in your head, the bandwidth is so fast. And if you have even 50 or 60 or 100 degrees of freedom, 1,000 degrees of freedom, it doesn't matter. You just need to make a machine with enough wires coming out of it. You'll be able to do unlimited number of things. And that's what Elon Musk said in one of those interviews. I don't know where he said it, but he looked at the Spot machine. Remember those Boston Dynamics machine? Let me just show you what that looks like. right? So I don't know if you guys have seen this. Right, so it's this thing, this thing, right? And Elon Musk's biggest problem with this, and my biggest problem with this too, is speed. Right now, they're showing you this machine moving really slowly, and that's fine. But eventually, they'll be jumping around and you can't even see them. You'll need strobe lights to see them. And that's my problem, because they're not that artificial speed that they're moving at is not what the maximum speed they can move at. They can move at factory level speeds, just like that matchbox factory that we saw. It could be instant. You can't even see what's going on. So I don't think those people will even be visible. Now, where do you get the mental intuition to use those extra degrees of freedom? The truth is you don't need them. You don't need any mental intuition. It's like monkeys, and let me just show you this. Monkey using neural prosthetic. You can see this, right? At the end of the day, before I show you this video, you could argue that humans work through punishment and reward, right? We do more of what we're rewarded for and do less of what we're punished for. But at the end of the day, it's not our actions or our behaviors that we're rewarded or punished for. We're just rewarded or punished for generating certain neural signals. If you generate certain neural signals, you're able to move your hands and all of those things happen. So with enough reward and feedback, you'll be able to use those devices, right? And the environment will show you that. So if you want to learn how to walk, if you're going to keep falling, eventually you'll realize I have to generate the right neural signals to be able to walk without falling. If that's your goal, then your brain will, or your prosthetic or your Neuralink will adapt. So just take a look at this. The monkey realized how to make the right kind of neural patterns to be able to move that hand, and it was driven by the reward of eating that marshmallow or whatever is being given to it. Alright, so if a monkey can do it, I'm pretty sure you guys can too. And obviously you'll have the help of the entire internet. You'll have the help of the entire, you can also do reading, right? You have the internet stuck in your brain. So far we've spoken about how an external device can read your thoughts, but you can also probably write thoughts by sparking certain electric signals. And how do you do that? One of the old school ways to do that is actually electromagnetic stimulation. It's called, let me just show you what this looks like. It's called a transcranial magnetic stimulation device, RTMS. Let me just show you an image. So you can basically shock the brain in certain directions to make signals move in a different direction. You can switch off certain parts of the brain, change blood flow to certain parts of the brain. That's the cool part, right? When you have devices like this, it's not very accurate. Like you can't micro stimulate parts of the brain because for obvious reasons, these are crude devices. It's like using two stones to light a fire, right? But with something like the Neuralink, so far we've been reading data, but we can send electricity back. We can eventually start writing data. And imagine being able to access the entirety of the internet in a microsecond without thinking about it. That's what makes me so fast in what I do today, right? Because I'm able to immediately interface with the computer. Like my words per minute is extremely high, and I can learn anything I want. I know how to Google stuff. Like I don't even think about what I need to Google. I just Google it. When I have a question or when I have something I'm unsure of, I just Google it, look at images, look at it in 3-4 different ways, create a picture of it, a map of it in my head, and then I know it. Right? And then maybe I read some research papers too if I need to do some extensive reading. But imagine doing all of that in a microsecond. Imagine not needing a computer or a keyboard to interface to get your point across to a computer and back. You will become the computer at that point. And if you guys have seen the movie Upgrade, and I recommended a lot of people on my Instagram to watch the movie Upgrade, I think I have this weird feeling that all devices are conscious. They just can't interact with our consciousness, but we exhibit consciousness because I think consciousness is a side effect of processing information. If you do reading and writing, or if you do if you have some inputs and outputs and you have a processing entity, you will probably experience some sort of consciousness. Similarly, your computer is conscious. The earth is conscious, right? In fact, the earth is more conscious than human beings because it has a bunch of different information processing units on it. And when you put this computer right so close to your brain, I assume that you will feel an entirely new type of consciousness. You will merge with a computer's version of consciousness, and I really can't predict what will happen then. Right? All these rats that we're doing this with, if you give the rat access to the internet, eventually it has enough processing units, right? Because the computing power of something is purely dependent on the number of registers it has. How many ones and zeros can you calculate? Can you do math with? A computer today with a 4 GB processor with 4 cores can do 16 GB. It has 16 GB number of registers, right? And if you guys don't know what that is, you can Google it, number of registers in a computer. We have some more bandwidth than that. But if you give a rat direct access to the internet and all the computers that are available on cold storage in AWS, well, I don't know what the rat would become. Will it become smarter than us? And at that point, will it care about us? Will it be stuck in its brain just going through whatever fantasy land it wants to go through? All those questions, I don't have an answer to yet, but it's my goal to figure it out. That's why I've been spending so much time in labs, so much time with Nimhan, so much time with in places like IISc. I'm learning as much as I can about the brain and not textbook level bullshit, right? I'm actually trying to experiment on my own brain and trying to figure out both reading, writing we can't do yet, but through reading and things like TDCS and TACS, I'm trying to learn more about the brain. And if, at some point, I want to be able to make a good decision about whether I should get or improve my brain or not, but most likely I will be doing it, because anybody who does it, if they're still existing in this real world, if they're not just locked in their brain, I would take over Wall Street in a few seconds, right? And I know there are plenty of bad guys who do the same thing. I'm not a bad guy, but I'm just saying that it seems obvious at that point, but I don't think I'll care about money at that point. I don't think, because I can create any world I want to in my head, right? And believe that world. Why would I want to have anything to do with the real world? It's like us and ants. Why do we don't even care about ants? So I assume that someone who merges with AI and is able to lock themselves into their head won't want to do anything with the real world. They'll just be like, it doesn't matter what the real world is. I'm so far ahead. I can move at unlimited speeds. It's like playing a game of GTA with like cheats on. You can do anything. You're never going to go to jail. It gets really boring. It gets boring like 15 seconds. And with a BCI stuck in your head with full access to the internet, I think you'll get bored, man. And you won't want to have anything to do with the real world. Alright guys, so that's it for this video. Just try to tell you in a story form what BCI are, what the Neuralink is, what the implications are. And I want to tell you about one last thing, right? I think gameplay in lucid dreaming was what somebody asked. Well, firstly, I think we'll be able to read people's dreams, but I have a theory around dreams. I think they're mostly bullshit. They're just preparing you for the next day. REM is just, it's like defragmentation. If you've ever done defragmentation on a computer, I'll see if I can show you what that looks like. If you go to a computer and just do right click, properties, disk cleanup. Do we not have defragmentation anymore? Yeah, so you have defragmentation. It basically reorganizes data. I think that's what, see, this is defragmentation. You guys can check it out on your own computers. But I fundamentally believe that, I think, yeah, dreams are just defragmentation. They're pretty much garbage. Should you feel scared or excited? I don't know. Aren't those two things the same emotion in a way? Like, to feel excitement, you need to feel some amount of fear. To feel fear, you need to feel some amount of excitement. It's just, why not feel both? I think it's going to be a crazy future. Nobody can predict it. But here's the cool part. I already think we're living in one of those alternate worlds that is generated by somebody's brain. I assume the universe or the multiverse, whatever itself, is a generation machine. It's just generating different kinds of consciousness. We are one of them. So even if you die, worst case scenario, or even if you go through the worst time ever or the best time ever, it doesn't matter. It's not real. It's not a reality. So yeah, it liberates you when you think like that. All right, guys. So that's it for this video. I don't want to make it too long. Hopefully I'll be able to see you on Instagram next. Again, when we go back to Instagram, after all this, we're going to go back to talking about degrees and college and, basic level stuff, because my YouTube is for slightly smarter people. So thanks for subscribing here. Make sure you hit the bell icon. Make sure you tell people about this. And actually, I'll take a couple of questions before I go very quickly. Very interesting questions. What will be the cost of doing this approximately? Well, I think in the future you will be able to 3D print the stimulator, or not the stimulator, the device that does the insertions. As long as the plans are accurate and you have a 3D printing device, you should be able to do it. The threads are what will cost you. And I'd assume, I don't know, anywhere between $10,000 to $100,000, and eventually the price of all technology dips, right? So eventually we'll be able to get it for $2,000 or $3,000. But I don't know if it's going to become commercial tech. Like, somebody has to be really kind to give this to everybody, right? So, that's my concern. So I don't know. Costs are, again, like I said, money is not a real thing, right? It's supply demand driven. So depends. What are the new emotions we can feel from Neuralink? I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure you'll feel some new emotions. You'll feel some new stuff. Your computer also feels some stuff. I don't know. And most likely emotions, you can just characterize them into positive feedback and negative feedback, right? You can either characterize emotions into positive or negative. Boredom is a negative emotion. Fear is a negative emotion. Negative emotion. Happiness is a positive emotion. Contentness is a positive emotion. It's still negative and positive, right? Similar to a computer. If a computer does something bad, it'll probably feel some sort of emotion. It's like this, right? Think about this. If I am an AI device and I've been shown thousands of brain scans of people with cancer and people with not cancer, and somebody's tagged it either as cancer or not cancer, eventually I'll have a feeling, I'll actually feel a feeling when I'm saying, okay, this is either cancer or this is not cancer. I'm pretty sure when AI says, when it says, okay, this, I have a confidence anywhere between 0 to 1, maybe this is 0.5 that this is cancer, I think it feels an emotion, just like you feel hunger. Right? So humans also feel things like hunger, right? That's a calculated or a computed number that you're feeling as an emotion. So will we be able to send our entire life experience? Yeah, easy. But I think that's going to be commoditized. It becomes so easy to sell or send your experience that the cost of doing that will be zero. Or the cost to another person of doing that would be zero. What will we do in this real world? Who said this world is real? I think we're already in one of these devices. Won't our natural motor nerve endings limit us to our original degrees of freedom? Then you can upgrade with prosthetics. You're not limited to this. You can upgrade with prosthetics, guys. Will you let yourself be experimented on? Yeah, for sure. But stepwise. Because I don't think the dangers of it are so high unless I lose permanent consciousness by going into a higher level of... The max that could happen is, in the real world, I look brain dead. Right? I'll probably be drooling and lying down, but in my head, I'd probably have invented a new universe or something. I don't know. I have no idea. But yes, I've done almost all there is to do in this real world. Let's see what's there beyond. But I don't know. Maybe I might not take that decision. I can't predict what I will do in 5 years. Depends on the tech. Depends on how bad this world gets. This world is just becoming a joke now. Right? If you look at the media and stuff, it's just a joke. What if you get stuck in somebody's consciousness with AI? It's going to happen, man. Could happen. Online on caffeine? No, I'm not online on caffeine. Plato's allegory of the cave? In a way, yes. I believe in it. So you guys can Google what that means for those of you who haven't seen it. What if something goes wrong? Would we be in coma? Maybe. But in your brain, you'll be in whatever world you want to be. So you could technically recreate this exact world that you're in your brain if you go into coma. And then it doesn't matter because you're in this world. Right? So, all right, guys. So that's it. I'm got to make sure the video isn't too long. Thanks for joining on. Bye-bye. And we'll go back to Instagram talking about memes and colleges. But remember, YouTube's the place for smart content, at least with me. Bye-bye.